There, Deadpool negative back. It's been a while. I had a full review of Tron Ares that was had to be thrown out just now. So I decided to talk about something else. There have been no health issues, serious health issues, thankfully, too serious anyway. I just was kind of blocked for things to talk about. I mean, not for things to talk about, but things to talk about. I think I had something interesting to say about. And before I start, I'd like to explain that I really don't pay much attention to Hassan Piker, so don't ask me to answer for anything he says or does. And I really didn't know much about Charlie Kirk, and please don't try to go after me for something that people don't like him did. I didn't like him, okay? But I'm going to keep that to myself, please. So to start off, I'd like to talk about something that has been making a lot of people in comics happy these past 2 years. And it is the recently concluded Daniel Warren run on the Transformers. That should be Daniel Warren Johnson. Now, at the time this came out, I knew Daniel Warren Johnson mostly art-wise. I hadn't really read any of his stuff. No, I had read he is collaborating with Donny Cates, The Ghost Fleet, which is pretty kick-ass. I hadn't read any of his solo stuff. I have since read Do a Power Bomb, which I recommend, and Space Mullet, which I also recommend, though it sort of ends on a cliffhanger that I don't think he's actually going to get back to. Um, but I he drew and wrote and drew the first 6 issues, and then Jorge Corona wrote the majority of the issues afterward. I reviewed up to issue 11, I think, and then I fell off because of various things. Um, I the run wrapped up last month in, I thought, a very appropriate way, and I wanted to reflect on how it made me feel about comics. And I'm sorry I have to say this about a corporate-owned property, but it made me feel good about comics again. It was it innovative? No. Was it full of fan service? Yes. But it moved at a pace that was really satisfactory. It was true to the characters. I would still say, as I argued in my review of the original issues, that it is very much an ultimization of the animated universe, which you can also see part of in Void Rivals and Josh Williams and G.I. Joe, which I should get caught up on. Um, I think it is. Does it? I think it definitely ranks up there with the best of the Transformers comics, which I consider like the original Simon Furman Marvel UK stuff and the US stuff. The Mike Costa run, which I know everyone hates, but I love, and some of the best of the James Roberts and John Barber stuff. Since thanks to Aubrey Ederson, comics have decided to pretend the IDW run sucked. Thanks to Comicsgate and Aubrey Sitterson shooting his mouth off. The IDW stuff was great. Brian Ruckley's stuff wasn't too bad. But I'm glad we moved the. I'm glad of the Energon Universe reboot. I think a new perspective, a new company, a new direction, a smaller direction with 3 books has really helped center this series. And I want to go back to this issue in particular, this finale. Jorge Corona is a guy also I'd never really heard of. I knew that he collaborated with Scotty Young. And while he was in the style of Daniel Warren Johnson, he was a lot rougher, more chaotic, more bigger than Daniel Warren Johnson, which if you read some of Johnson's stuff is not a small thing to say. And with this issue, he draws. I mean, this is the splash. Look at this. Look how much effort was put into this page, and every page is like that. This did not turn out to be his last issue. He was planning to leave with this issue, but he shows up in the next issue, which I'll also be doing a review of. And I don't want to give too much away about this issue because I want y'all to read it. But it is the conclusion of everything he's been building up since the beginning. The arcs of Megatron, Optimus Prime, Starscream, and Beachcomber. And there's visual by Corona, which is so astounding. Even for a Transformers comic. I was just like knocked flat by it. But it's fascinating because like Starscream's had a very small background arc of the whole thing. Johnson's approach to Starscream is that he's a guy who was caught up in the war and a friend of his died. And he doesn't make Starscream an innocent so much as a guy who was caught, a guy who wasn't really meant to be a warrior, but his anger wouldn't let him not fight. And at the end of this, in the middle of this issue, Megatron, faced with the chance to end this war, he sees something happens to him regarding that amazing illustration by Corona, where he realized it doesn't matter who wins this war, it won't make Starscream's life any different. And it's just a fascinating, because like one of the things Corona has been on about since this series started is like this war affects the war between the Autobots and Decepticons don't just affect the Earth, it affects the Autobots and Decepticons. Beachcomber, willing to hide for hundreds of years just to avoid the war. Starscream, stuck with collateral damage. Alita 1, broken by having to run what was left of the Autobots when Optimus Prime was gone. And some of this artwork, shit. There are parts where the scan service gets, this is actual dialogue. You who are worthy mercy now plead for it. I thought you were made for sterner stuff. And we get, I was 8 in 1986. I remember all those moments. Daniel Warren Johnson does too. This whole series has been a love letter to the animated series. And I do appreciate that, but I'm glad he's done with it. I'm actually glad he's decided to move on. Not because I haven't been loving this or wanted to see it go longer. It's just like he ends it in a really good place. He ends it in a place that fans of the series can really appreciate, really feel good about, and just, and the story, while I think if you're a longtime fan, you can appreciate it more. The overall story is something non-fans, I think, can read and appreciate, or people who just watch the movies. I really have no notes, except for lay off the fan service dialogue. More of this and less remember that. And I appreciate what he did. And my life has not been that great these past 2 years, especially the past year. And I think Daniel Warren Johnson's run on the title has helped me through it. We're not supposed to say a dumb comic book about transforming robots helps us through it. We're supposed to be better than that. But that's what entertainment is for, is to help us through things. And Daniel Warren Johnson's run on the Transformers helped me through it. And I'm glad I read it. I'm glad Jorge Corona drew it. And if you've paid attention to the New York Comic Con news this weekend, he and Scotty Young aren't going to go back to do one of their books together like they planned. I also met Mr. Corona last year at MICC. Great guy. They are going to do a run on Lobo for DC, which is nice because that'll raise both their profiles. I just want to thank Daniel Warren Johnson for being a good enough Transformers fan, being a good enough writer and a good enough artist. And I look forward to what he does next. Thank you, Daniel Warren Johnson!